My name is Saima Pradhan, and this is my final presentation for my Capstone project, Measurable Goals and Objectives. When trying to figure out what to do for my Capstone project, I wanted to do something that was relevant to my special education department. This interview will provide you some insight into how or why I created my Capstone project. Clancy Goodwin is a speech therapist and a special education department chair. She will give you some insight into how a lot of the teachers in the special education department feel, including myself. Let's hear what she has to say.
Hi, Clancy.
Hi, Saima.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Peachtree Elementary?
Sure. I am a speech pathologist here at Peachtree, and I'm also the grade level department chair.
All right. So, just to begin, can you go ahead and tell us how you determine if a goal or objective is measurable for any of your students on your caseload?
Yeah, so that's been a big movement in the last probably 5 years about making sure your objectives, your goals and objectives are measurable. And for speech, it's pretty simple as far as when it comes to articulation. You know, can the child say the sound in a word? Yes or no? We try to do it more specifically than that. You know, can they say the sound in a word with 80% accuracy and 3 out of 4 consecutive data collection days? That just guarantees that the child is consistent with it. But then the more tricky aspect is when you get into like language goals and objectives. Can they define vocabulary words? Well, it depends on the vocabulary words. Are they basic vocabulary words? Are they curriculum vocabulary words? And through the consistency of being able to measure a goal and objective, it really has made me focus more on what specifically am I looking for, and can anyone pick up that goal and objective and measure it?
Yeah, that's really important, especially when we're creating goals for these students to go into middle school or transfer into other schools. So I know with this new program that we have, Story, that Gwinnett County has rolled out, and a lot of teachers have found it challenging.
Yes.
Can you tell me how you take data and have taken data in past years?
So I've always taken data on paper.
Yes.
And for speech, we don't really have like paper pencil tasks for the students to do
That makes
or
sense.
a permanent product.
Well, even in like content areas, sometimes there aren't paper pencil, for example, for behaviors.
True.
Yeah.
True. So I have data collection forms for every child, and it's sort of in speech we also have to take attendance. So I have like an attendance calendar stapled to their data collection with their IEP goals and objectives as the last page.
Right.
And then for articulation, I'll put, you know, what level they're on, if it's S in the beginning of a word at the sentence level, and then I want them to have at minimum 10 opportunities to say that word. And so I'll do like a plus or, you know, a plus for correct or a circle for incorrect.
Sure. So Story is actually an online-based data-taking program.
Yes.
So what do you think is the biggest challenge since you're taking it on paper? Why is it so hard to go on a computer and take the data?
Right. Well, because the way Story is designed and set up, you can only have one record open at a time. So I might have 5 students in my room that I'm taking data on simultaneously.
Sure.
And I can have all 5 of their papers spread out on my table and quickly write down if they got that trial correct or incorrect. But with Story, I can't do it in real time. So what's happening is people are having to take the data on paper and then transfer that data from the paper to the electronic copy, and it's double the time.
Sure. So can you tell me some of the needs in your department currently that you see?
Sure. I think the need more so is for the academic side.
Sure.
Speech therapists have been taking data. I mean, I've been a speech therapist for 15 years, and I've taken data from day one.
Mm-hmm.
But the movement towards even classroom teachers taking data, special education teachers taking data, behavior has always been a key to take data in, but for other academic areas, it's always just been grades, which is a valuable data collection, but not so much geared towards the specific IEP goals and objectives. So I think teachers really have a hard time finding materials that match the goals and objectives and are measuring exactly what the goal and objective says is going to.
Do you think they're having a hard time with finding measurable goals and objectives too, or is that easier than finding the resources?
I mean, I can only speak for Peachtree, and I think we've done a pretty good job of narrowing down, for reading fluency, you can either measure their Fontes and Pinnell level.
Sure.
But then that becomes tricky because you can't do an F&P every week.
Right.
But you can do like the dibbles. You can do a word count per minute every week. I think math is a little more challenging because you break it down and, the Fuchs and Fuchs progress monitoring tools that we use for RTI, they're mixed computation. So they're not really skill-based. And when you get to IEP goals and objectives, you have a more narrow goal and objective where the Fuchs and Fuchs won't match that.
Sure.
If you're measuring if they can subtract 3-digit with regrouping, you need an entire sheet of just 3-digit with regrouping.
Right. Is there anything else you'd like to add about the special education department and its needs or problems that you see?
I think, going back to story, it's really, time is the most valuable resource that is so little of, and to have to take a data on a piece of paper and then after school go back and re-enter that into online is just, most teachers find it very difficult, and it's the last thing on the list.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
So, from what Clancy said, time is essential for teachers. And 2 years ago, Gwinnett County held a meeting with all the special education teachers in the county. Teachers walked out of the meeting in a panic. Tears were due to stress that the meeting had caused. They were introduced to the new program called Story, which is what Clancy was talking about, and it helped teachers collect data on goals and objectives. The biggest problem was that teachers were already taking data on paper and pencil, and similar to what Clancy said, it was difficult for the teachers to go into the online program, type in the data, add the plus, the minus, or the data point, whatever it may be per student. It was just one more step, one more thing to do. It's not that the teachers didn't want to take the data, it was just another addition or another thing that was taking away from their time. So I found a need in the department. After the teachers took out their frustrations, they actually got to work on creating a lot of data sheets and sharing it with fellow teachers. Teachers were creating data binders, resource folders, and so many great products. It was basically a school-by-school case. The problem really occurred when measurable goals were created, but the resources were missing, or vice versa. All the resources and products were getting lost on forums, emails, and various school websites. People were sharing things within the county, within the cluster, great resources. Again, things were just getting lost. So speaking to my department a little further, we realized there was a need for organization. We did great on creating some of those measurable goals and objectives. Yes, some of them did need to get looked at, but we definitely need a place where it was all organized. We need to create measurable goals and objectives and link them to the resources. My project plan? Easy. Create a website. The goal of my Capstone project was basically to clear the frustration by providing a bank of measurable goals and objectives to the teachers on a website. My project plan details. The objectives, the first one, to organize existing resources, create resources for each objective, and to allow teachers to collect more data. My next objective, to decrease the amount of time it takes teachers to find resources connected to the goals by providing the resources and goals all in one place. Again, that just goes back to the time. Deliverables, design a user-friendly website that is easy to navigate to provide maximum usage. Create measurable goals and objectives in the areas of math, reading, writing, and behaviors. IEPs written to match individual student needs. Again, we're still looking at individual student needs. And also, this user-friendly, this word, is very important because I want to make sure that we do get maximum usage. It's not just another tool sitting out there on a forum getting lost. It's really important to me that my objectives match some of the PSC standards so I can validate the reasons for my project plan. The next item on my presentation is the evaluation plan. The first part of my project was actually creating measurable goals and objectives and resources for each area. I wanted to evaluate if the goals and objectives were measurable and if the resources that are connected to it, if they actually match the objectives. The second part was actually creating the website. I wanted to evaluate, is it user-friendly? And some of the things I was looking at was organization, the goals and objectives, and the resources. How did I do all this? Well, during grade level meetings, discussions took place about the goals and objectives, the resources. Emails were sent out, surveys were sent out, and a contact portion on the website was put on for continuous feedback. So just a quick little description of my Capstone experience. I used the Weebly to create my website. I did this during the meetings. After the meetings, I would add on the goals as the goals were created and approved and agreed upon. I created categories by subjects and then subcategories, and I provided a professional development once the website was created or close to complete. I realized that my website did not have to be complete, and I could still share it. Let me go ahead and give you a tour of my website so it makes a little. Welcome to my website. It's called IEP Goal Perfection. So as you could see, I have my categories. I actually added one more category, and it's general data collection. I'm still working on a lot of it, and you could see some general data collection sheets that teachers can create. When I click on math basics, you could see some goals. I suggested a goal and then some objectives. I also realized within creating the goals that sometimes the goals just have to be created case by case. These IEP objectives are just suggestions for the teachers to use, and they can revamp them in any form that they want for their students. I played around a lot with the font, the background, things like that, what you would normally not think about when you're creating a website where you're trying to create organization. But that has a lot to do with the appeal. So as you can see, these buttons have probes and even teaching resources, and teachers have already started to use this. So as I reflect upon my experience, I realized that more measurable goals were actually created. I think it was mostly the discussions that were created during our grade level meetings, and it's actually evident as files are passed along grade levels. Teachers started taking more data than ever before. However, they weren't taking it on story still. It seems to be a challenge. I have a feeling that the interface of the program needs to be revamped. My website itself is a continuous project. I continue to get goals and objectives and resources, and I continue to add them along on there. And I don't mind at all because it helps my department, it helps the students, it creates better IEP goals and objectives, and in the end, it makes our jobs easier, helps to save time. I thank you for listening to my presentation.